Yeah. Jimmy, I don't even need to speak. I just liked hearing you. You could do the whole thing without me. Oh, yeah. And the different battered up computer was the one that worked. Who would have thunk, you know? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. More I've been blackballed forever from a number of different entities. A long list of them. Whatever you want, I will give you what you like. So don't feel you'll offend me. I mean, I offend people all the time, but don't worry about it, you know. Yeah, it is. It is. Poor man's morning rush. Rush, the morning rush on the low power blowtorch. Yeah. Yeah. It's been on now. This is into the seventh year. I go on this little station. I couldn't buy myself a radio gig. I had, been on a number of stations, fired from like numerous stations, and then this little station in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, 43 watts of massive low power. And luckily we had streaming, but it helped me organically get a morning show that is pretty unique and probably just as groundbreaking as Loveline was, but with a morning gig because all the music is picked out by the listeners. It's all instant requests all the time, any genre, any era of music based on a daily musical theme. So that's what we do there. Yeah, yeah. They wanted to cut me out of that. They wanted to cut me out because the guy decided it was horrible when they had I forget what that my name was as the DJ and that and yeah the Heathers were calling in and they just couldn't stand my performance and God what was the Michael something or other was the director and somehow he couldn't cut me out and the great thing about it is it worked, and that movie was iconic. I mean, you had Winona Ryder, Christian Slater in it. Um, who else? There were a bunch of really famous people that were in that low budget movie. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I was going to law school and, struggling, and I just I mean, I love the fact I love the idea of being a lawyer, and somehow I made it through, law school. I went to college, and it took me 5 years because I flunked 2 years worth of law school. But I mean, I would get stoned sometimes and go to I remember the law and psychiatry. I was so high one time in that class that I almost, had a nervous breakdown. We were discussing all these ways of, insanity defenses and whatnot. But I graduated from Loyola Law School with a Juris Doctorate. So I am a doctor, believe it or not. And I got a bachelor's in political science. And oh, did you? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Hey, all the Cal States are good. But so yeah, so I went to undergrad, got a JD degree, and I flunked the bar three or more times. So it all worked out for the best. I got somehow wrote those guidebooks, ran into the program director of KROQ at the time, Rick Carroll, who was like the greatest program director of all time. People realized his genius. And he put me on the air after, well, I met him and he asked for a free copy of the book when it was first coming out. Then it made the LA Times critics list. I did one for Pasadena, one for the West Side on Dining for Under $6 called The Poor Man's Guide. And 18 months later, I decided to get some publicity after making the LA Times critics list, self published them myself, drove around in a Chevy Monza selling them to all the bookstores, and they sold like crazy. And so I went back to Rick, and he remembered me because he was the only guy I gave a free copy to. I didn't even know what KROQ was at the time, and at the time it was an underground station where they could have probably arrested everybody inside there. Drug deals going down in the corridors, the whole deal. And I got on the radio doing a 5-minute restaurant review where the only requirement was I get free meals for all the jocks because they were all broke, and for Rick. So I had meal certificates. By that time, all these restaurants had so much business because the Poor Man's Guide was so popular. And they said, "What should we call you?" And I go, "Well, it's the Poor Man's Guide to Gourmet Dining for under $6. Call me the Poor Man." And that's how that whole thing happened. I get on the radio, and it was like taking a dump. It was really easy for me to do radio. I mean, I had no training, and now we're what 3 or 4 decades into it, and isn't that crazy? I'd still like to pass the bar. I took it one more time, like 5 years ago, and flunked it again. But if I was a lawyer, I'd be a great lawyer. I mean, I could talk in front of a crowd real easy, and I would represent people for the right reasons. I would not. Yeah. Yeah. No, no, Kevin is back. They fired Kevin a couple of years ago. He went to KLOS, he couldn't cut it, not surprised. They fired him in Sluggo, and then immediately they go and they hire Kevin back again with the same program director 3 decades later who fired me, or 2 decades later, however long it's been. Um, yeah, so they got all the same people in place. Right now the ratings are not good on K-Rock, and it's not, they're you got to be alternative, and you cannot teach alternative. It's a curse, and at the same time, you're sort of born with the ability to just get creative. Like Loveline, it was just something I thought of. Poor Man's Morning. Well, I'll give everybody. I'll give everybody a life's lesson here. And you know what? I luckily I came out at the on the other end. It took about 20, 25 years to, you know, to stop being bitter. But I finally got to the point where, I couldn't get a gig in radio. I mean, I was broke. And I just said, okay, my job is going to be to find one positive thing every day. And I retrained my brain. I mean, there's no way I could go back to KROQ because they wouldn't have me back. And after a while, you just have to somehow move on and somehow, you know, just keep trying stuff. And so, you know, where we you wanted how I came up with Loveline? Is that what you asked me? I can't remember. um, well, the thing is, it was we came up with the name. I don't even know how I thought of it. And I was sitting at my house in Newport at the time, and I had a late night show. They took me off something and gave me a late night slot on a Sunday night, midnight to 3. And uh, that was later. Loveline started before Richard was even there. But I had a late night slot and I did not know how to run the controls of the radio station. So Swedish Eagle sat in, he ran the controls. And so, let's just have people call up with love problems, and a couple unqualified FM DJs will give advice. And immediately from the word go, the phones were blazing. Never, I mean, all the lines blazing all the time from the first second we did it. And we called it Love Line. After a while, when they said, "Poor man, I have a weird ooze coming out of my, left nut sack," I couldn't keep saying take an aspirin. And so, I met I was at a party in a shower naked, lathering myself off at a buddy's house who eventually became producer Bob when Richard and I did have a morning show, and he was just some guy we became friends that lived near KROQ, and he brings this guy in and says, "This is Drew Pinsky. He's going to medical school, and poor man, and could you do something with him?" And I was literally nude in the shower. There was Dr. Drew, and we first, I said, "Yeah, come on, we'll do something on the radio." We thought we'd do a thing called Ask a Surgeon, like, "Dr. Drew, I have this weird growth on my head. What should I do?" And he wasn't even a doctor yet. So he went on there, and then we decided he should be on Loveline when there were medical questions, so medically related love problems. And it worked because even though in real life he wasn't as conservative and uptight as he was on the radio show, because he was actually a lot of fun behind the scenes. But the chemistry just worked at him getting super annoyed because I'd want to find out every detail of the family dog being done by 25 guys at a party, and well, how much did you slip it in, or whatever, all you'd have to do is ask what's your love problem. Anybody could have done it, as you saw by the succeeding host. But once the creator of the show, myself, was gone, it kept going, but it lost its flavor that it had, back in the day. That's funny. I don't remember that, but that's good. I remember the family dog though being done by 25 guys. And I mean, I also remember Phyllis Diller being on, and I mean, she was a comedian, and I mean, we wanted to find her like love problems that were, where she could make jokes. And somebody called in with that they had just, you know, injected themselves with Drano, and literally Dr. Drew was on with them off the line trying to call, an ambulance. I mean, this is a real life problem. And after 20 minutes, so many serious issues. And Phyllis goes, Dr. Drew, I I can't take it anymore. I got to get off. And I go, well, Phyllis, no, I got to get off now. Then she hung up, and we took that clip and we would played it over and over and over again on the show. I can't take it anymore. And so, and she became so famous because her granddaughter got her on the show in the first place. Her granddaughter was a big fan, but she became so famous from doing the show. I think she came back on after that and just thank you, man. Everybody hears me on Loveline. So, it was a lot of fun doing the show. It became the number one show in LA at night. We went to 5 days a week. And then I managed to get myself fired at the height of my popularity when I was, the number one radio personality in Los Angeles, and then you got to deal with the fact that in entertainment, there you enjoy the moment, but you got to understand your true friends are your family, because once I wasn't on there anymore, what happened to my friends over at Virgin Records? They won't take my calls anymore, or Geffen Records. Or, they used to call me poor Jesus, if you can believe it. And, just, people will kiss your ass. And then once you're not there anymore, you realize it's a job. And even, with Dr. Drew, I was so mad for so long. I forgive even him now. I'm not mad at anybody anymore. It's stupid. It's like, but yeah. Yeah, before you go on to that, I think it's a life's lesson for anybody, no matter what profession they're in, because people get burned in workplaces or they get fired, and then all the people that were their friends at work won't even talk to them. And, somehow you just have to, try to stay positive somehow and realize there's something else that could be made even better for you that, like, I mean, yeah, that's the whole thing, and you know, it's tough. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but you got to somehow, try not to let it destroy you if you can. No matter what profession you're in. Yeah, that one has haunted me also. That was, I mean, look, guys loved that Poor Man's Bikini Beach. There was no nudity in it, and it was funny and fun. I mean, it was a great comedy show, I mean, and it's so ridiculous, and it made me a pretty good living until I went bankrupt. But that's another story in its own right. But yeah, I just did. I lived in Newport, and you know, we did a thing on the beach where we were going to do a thing called world premiere television, where I was going to get clips of trailers of TV shows that didn't ever make it. And then I thought the Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason. Did you ever remember that? He would always have going into commercials real pretty girls saying, "And we'll be right back with the Honeymooners after this." So I did the same kind of idea with world premiere television. We'll be right back with more world premiere television. I would ask, girls in bikinis on the beach, would you mind doing this as part of my show? And we realized when we had the pilot, we had people sitting in a room and watching. They could have given a rat's ass about the clips of pilots, but when the girls in bikinis came on, it was like, you know, just their eyes were bugging out, and it got great ratings, that show. And I mean, I had a lot of sponsors that got a lot of great results from this stupid bikini show, and which one? Love Chat. Mhm. Was it that was it Out of My House or was it at KDOC? Out of My House. Oh, I know where, yes, yes. It was in the 2009 or something like that. Yeah, and with, the genius, Rudy, who was at the there was a whole control setup in the toilet. Remember that? Well, that was the one, right? And we would yeah, yeah, yeah. It it wa it was Extends, yeah. It was an energy drink that would make your, male units grow larger, and so I decided to do the experiment on myself in order to get the sponsor to sponsor it, and they paid a lot of money to be on Love Chat, and but then it evolved. We couldn't get enough calls because it was, early on in the internet, we just couldn't get the calls. And you may yeah, but then we got like YouTube yeah. She was on. Yeah, she was on. Yeah, yeah. I know. I know the Millionaire Matchmaker. I remember that. Yeah. We But then we would get but then we got these YouTube, I don't know if you're around for that. We had these YouTube personalities that would have like 100,000 followers, and they'd be on live, and they would give a notice to their followers to watch them on this interview show, and we would have an influx of like 10,000 people, but they would only stay for as long as their, hero was on, which was interesting. It was. Oh, yeah. 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 Well, it wasn't 48 hours, but it felt like it. We do it every new Yeah, I've done it for 5 years in a row. On every New Year's Eve, we do the poor man's 28-hour New Year's party where I broadcast for 28 straight hours, and I get different listeners, sponsors, etcetera, to host their own hour. And so a couple of them did 2 hours at a time, so we had about 24 different people. It started at 9 a.m. New Year's Eve, and it goes all the way till like 1 p.m. New Year's Day. And I've done it 5 years in a row, and every year it's like going to the dentist with a giant root canal. I'm thinking, "Am I gonna really do this again?" And but it's pretty funny. The fact I've done it 5 years in a row, it's gotten easier because the guest hosts have such great performances. I mean, it's like the greatest 28 hours of live radio you've ever heard. And so I'm at the controls for the whole thing, and it's pretty surreal and very cool to do that. Yeah, so it always starts at 9 a.m. New Year's Eve and goes till 1 p.m. New Year's Day. It's the ultimate New Year's party. or I'll call it that. It doesn't always work. it, it was really kind of, I was pretty nervous, to be honest with you, going on Oprah with five other jocks. More so by the fact, before you go on there, you're thinking, this is when there were only three talk shows. There was, in the 80s, mid 80s, there was Oprah, there was Geraldo, and Phil Donahue. Those were the only shows. And it was live in Chicago. She flew me there. And I was thinking, oh man, if I do well, I'm going to be a big star, and I shouldn't have thought that way. And so I decided before I came on, I had to do a poor man prank on there. So my buddy made made a little life size stick up, stick model of my face with my phone number on it. So the other five guys were talking about how they were married and had their kids, and I said, and they were going to move on. I said, wait a minute, what about me? I'm not married, and if there's any cute girls watching right now, here's my home phone number and the little stick model of me smiling like that with my number underneath. Oprah loved it, held it up several times, and I got, this was before, we had our devices, our cell phones, and I got, all you could do is have voicemail for 6 solid weeks after that. My voicemails were filled up. Remember, you had a little tape with your voicemail, and nonstop calls for 6 solid weeks after that. Didn't make me famous, but it was a pretty special moment. Yeah, she was really nice, by the way. I really really enjoyed that experience. Very nice. Yeah, very down to earth. But, you'd figure she would be. It's the poor dog. The poor dog. Every time a dog goes by, in this case, I think a dog in a baby carriage or something. Come here, Bear. Come here. Can you see Bear? Bear. Bear. Can you see Bear in the background? See right there, right where the light is. Yeah, right where the light is. Here, hold on a sec here. Come here, Bear. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Yeah, it's the poor dog. Wait a minute. Bear. Yeah. Shy like it. Yeah. Uh, I think I would have done it differently. Yeah, I would have. The problem was when I, did Loveline, it was 10 to midnight. And before that, I was doing 6 to 9 at night as a nighttime show. So I said, so that when they switched me to 10 to midnight, I was doing gigs every night, making $2,000 to $4,000 in gig money, doing clubs, whatever, and so I lost all that money going on 10 to midnight. I said, if the show does well 5 days a week, we were 1 day a week at that time. And I said, would you guys, compensate me, even though it was outside money? I'm losing a lot of money. So before Loveline started, they said, well, you could either do it or we'll get Doug the Slug or Tammy Heidi to host that show and you can stay with your current show. I said, no, I created the show. That's my baby. I obviously can't not do it. So it became a huge number one show, and they never compensated me, and that was my frustration. And I should have stayed cool about it. I guess part of the problem was, you're doing a live show at the top level of anything. You're doing a hugely successful show live, and you're paranoid. I mean, maybe it'll stop one day, and I'm not getting paid what I should be, and I should have been more patient, probably. In looking back, I shouldn't have taken 500 listeners to Bean's front lawn, but you can't take it back. Yeah, yeah, but there's a reason for it. I mean, in the last 6 or 7 years, I mean, I bought my own home for the first time. I'm remarried to a woman I love with all my heart, Amy. We met 7 years ago. We've been married almost 3 years. She's the greatest. I mean, she's my life partner for sure. And then we have this dog. Well, that's another story. But no, the dog's cool. But and yeah. uh, that's the worst. That's the worst part is when you got to pee and poo the dog like 18 times a day. It's like you might as well adopt a kid, don't you think? I mean, you might as well seriously adopt a child or have a child. Well, you can take off Morrissey and you can take off Bowie. Although I did kind of interview him because when he had the Glass Spider tour, they flew DJs from all over the country. This is, I think, in '89. He was kicking it off in Philadelphia, and he needed the hype for it. And anyway, so he sent me there, and I asked, well, we talked to his manager. I was doing the night show, and can we get Bowie on, for an interview? And they said, no, 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 no. I said, well, the listeners, what we ended up doing, I said, how about if I have the listeners ask Bowie questions? And they said, okay, if you tape the questions, we'll have David answer the questions from the listeners. And they sent back the tape answering all the questions with Bowie. That's what I ended up doing, which is pretty cool to involve the listeners. But to me, all the part of the secret of my radio career has been always interacting with the listeners, always. So, you know, right. But I did interview a lot of people, and let me give a quick plug for Poor Man's Morning Rush. 2 or 3 months ago, actually, we're into the fourth month. I decided to do a feature called Poor Man's 15 Minutes of Fame. And you can catch all the 15 minutes with different, personalities on my website, poorman.net. We podcast them after they're live on the radio. And so 5 days a week, I mean, this week alone, we interviewed Stephen Perkins, the drummer of Jane's Addiction, and Jesse Hughes, a singer of Eagles of Death Metal. I asked him about the terrorist attack in France, and you know we also had Xander Schloss of Circle Jerks was on. They just headlined Coachella, so that's a cool daily feature that we're doing. So you know, I, we should get you on. That would be I'll put you well, I'll put you on. Why not? It'd be great. You had sex with Kamala Harris? Are you serious? How did that happen? I how how many years ago? Well, Come on, be honest, it was 3 years ago. That's a really great story. Alright, yeah, well, you you know what? As much as I appreciate you interviewing me, this yeah, that's a good one. Well, yeah, let's get you on there. Even if you didn't have that story, I'd still put you on, you know, 'cause everybody has a story. That's what it's all about, 15 minutes of fame. Mhm. I would love to say that I had relationships or anything with famous people, but I was, I guess, not attractive enough or whatever it was, and I didn't. I never went out with anybody famous. I mean, the closest I got was the new Marilyn Munster. You know, I kissed her. You know, and that was as far as I got. You know, so y- I mean, you know, when you're famous, I mean, you know, I mean, and the K-Rock DJs were, drugs were available, you know, and I'm glad I never got hooked on coke. I mean, I did it, you know, as recreationally, but you know, but it was never for me really. And I mean, I saw a lot of great careers get ruined, you know, and I mean, Jed just passed, and he had a big, yeah, yeah, he had a lot of issues. Great guy. Great broadcaster, very unique, but he had substance issues for a long time in his life, you know, and yeah. Well, it was pretty public. I mean, people knew. I mean, you know, so and a lot of other jocks did too. So, I mean, my big thing is, you know, I smoked a lot of pot, you know, like a choo-choo train for a long time, and you know, I whatever people want to do, the only thing now is if you're doing a lot of drugs now, there's fentanyl, which kind of like, I mean, that's yeah, yeah. How about you? Did you ever see an indoor blizzard yourself? Yeah. I all right, tell me your story. Okay. Yeah, that's all right. So do a lot of people, you know. Of course. Oh man. Where was this at? And it was right in the middle of the open? In the middle of open? Good grief. Oof. Ah, yeah. Yeah, how about you personally? Did you ever, okay. Mhm. Vice president. That is a really good one though, Jimmy. I love that. The question is, how are you gonna get off? That's what I wanna. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me. Honestly, it's been great, and let's I got your number, you got mine, so we'll get you on the 15 minutes of fame too, okay? Oh yeah, for sure. In fact, that's the way I'm reconnecting with my audience is through social media. I mean, so many people have no idea I do anything anymore because it's hard to reconnect with all the people that millions of people who listen to me. And so my Instagram, which is growing by the moment, thanks to collabs with people like yourself and all kinds of people. It's Poor Man's Morning Rush, which is the name of my radio show that I do Monday through Friday from 7 to 11 a.m. And you can go to poorman.net and you'll get the schedule again if you forget, but it's on KOCI. But just if you Google Poor Man's Morning Rush and all instant requests all the time on the radio show, Poor Man's 15 Minutes of Fame. And it's a lot of fun. It'll remind you of back in the day, but at the same time, we do all genres and all eras of music based on a musical theme of the day. So, which people pretty much are all about anyway these days. You can access anything. So I do that. Poor Man's Morning Rush on Instagram, Facebook, Jim Poorman Trenton, and on X at Poor Man One. But the Instagram's the main one. Poor Man's Morning Rush. Thanks for Thank you, my man. Thank you. And yeah, look, there's the poor dog in her entire glory. All right. Okay, but I'll talk to you soon about getting on the 15 minutes of fame. Jimmy, you are the man, you are the myth, you are the legend. Woo! Thank you.